welcome to Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute's 2024 Foster Youth Internship Congressional Briefing. Today, you will hear from our advocates on their federal policy recommendations shared in their published report, Roots of Support, Building Infrastructures to Support Children and Families in the Child Welfare System. My name is Kate McLean. I'm Executive Director of CCAI. CCAI is a nonprofit entity of the largest bipartisan, bicameral caucus in the U.S. Congress. Over 145 members on the 118th Congress have joined and are actively engaged in supporting legislation and policy that improves the lives of children and families in the United States and around the world. Both the CCA and CCAI are deeply committed to bipartisanship, strengthening families, and permanency. One of CCAI's signature programs is the Foster Youth Internship Program. FYI is a congressional internship for individuals who have experienced the U.S. foster care system. It began in 2003 as an effort to raise awareness to federal policymakers about the needs and unique perspectives of youth in care. While participating in the Congressional Office Internship, the advocates have spent many months researching policy issues affecting youth in the United States foster care system. These experiences allow the advocates to present this policy before you and Congress today, in addition to the executive branches with the Administration and Department of Health and Human Services next week. This report is also released to child welfare advocates across the country. CCAI exists to bridge the gap between congressional leaders, advocates, policy influencers, foundations, child welfare and adoption professionals, and service providers. As a convener, CCAI brings together voices of experience and expertise to the U.S. Congress. When members of Congress hear direct experiences of those affected by child welfare systems, they become engaged in this issue and work to bring about legislative change to ensure each child's right to a family is realized. I am honored today to introduce 8 leaders, the authors of this report: Leah, Eric, Christian, Dylan, Nadia, Maria, Shai, and Julia. These talented leaders come from all over the United States, coast to coast, from Washington to Indiana and Connecticut and many states in between. They bring with them varied but equally impressive backgrounds of advocacy, volunteering, and professional experiences. We hope you are inspired by these experts and their ideas and solutions for change. I'd now like to introduce CCAI Board Chair Susan Neely, also CEO of the American Council of Life Insurers, to provide opening remarks on behalf of the Board of Directors. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, our fearless leader and very distinguished executive director. It's on there, that's why it has a green light now. Again, thank you, Kate, our fearless leader and distinguished director. We appreciate you very much. Well, I'm just here on behalf of the Board of Directors to really say thank you to everyone in this room and beyond these walls who has helped make this program such a success this year. Soon we'll hear from the talented students who were at the center of it all, but it does require the support and commitment of all of you, and we appreciate you very, very much. At CCAI, we like to say that knowledge is power, and we're really united to support this body, Congress, to support government leaders here and around the country in using their power for the good of children and families. We do that as to the best of our ability by bringing you talented students and leaders like these who have lived experience, who can tell their story, and not just tell their story, but also identify policy recommendations that throughout the history of this program, some have been turned into laws, some have been introduced as legislation, and all have elevated understanding of what the needs are of students in the foster care system. We have a companion to this later in September. I hope you're familiar with our Angels in Adoption program as well. Again, bringing people with lived experience to this august body so you can hear their stories, hear what the needs are, and hear their real practical ideas for making a difference out there. So I will just, I don't want to stand in the way of hearing the policy recommendations and experiences of our foster youth intern. So I'm just going to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you to our distinguished co-chairs, Senators Amy Klobuchar and Senator Kevin Kramer, and on the House side, Congressman Adam Smith and Congressman Robert Aderholt. They are essential to the work we do. We appreciate their commitment, leadership, and guidance that they give to us every day. And then thank you to all of the members who sponsored a foster youth intern this summer. That would be Representative Robert Aderholt, Representative Don Bacon, Representative Danny Davis, Senator Chuck Grassley, Representative Raul Grijalva, Representative Gwen Moore, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, and Representative Adam Smith. Please, a round of applause for all of you. And I am here on behalf of the Board of Directors, but I want to recognize my colleague and the leader on our board of our Foster Youth Initiative, and that's Russ Sullivan. Russ, I thought I just saw you come. There he is, right there in front of me. Russ is a long-time member of the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute Board. He is the father of 22 foster sons and alumni of this distinguished body, the U.S. Senate. So Washington power broker by day and a passionate advocate for CCAI and children and families all the time, not by day and night, right? And then finally, again, we just thank all of you for your commitment and your support. I'm very happy to turn the program now over to Leah Adams and Maria Rosa Kelly, who will take it from here. Leah and Maria, thank you very much.
My name is Malia, or Leah Adams.
And my name is Maria Kelly, formerly Maria Chavez.
We are 2 out of 8 foster youth interns for the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute, who've had the privilege of participating in the 2024 Foster Youth Internship. We have spent our summer working and learning in both chambers, enriching our knowledge and fueling our passion for advocacy. We are extremely grateful for the lifelong lessons and insights learned firsthand from mentors, advisors, congressional staff, and community partners. There are not enough words to say thank you to those who have answered every little question, like how much eyeliner is way too much, or is it crazy to wear red bottoms to work? We extend our gratitude for meeting with us on the weekend, for hours on end, or simply showing up when we asked. All of these individuals have continuously shaped our future and strengthened our commitment to advocating beyond ourselves. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Reflecting on our journey, we are reminded of the profound words of Deb Haaland, the first ever Indigenous cabinet member and the United States Secretary of the Interior, who once said, "I sometimes wonder, what do you choose to read? What do you choose to think about? And what do you choose to know?" On behalf of our cohort, we thank you for choosing today to learn, listen, and maybe even relate to our collective stories. All of you in the room contribute something to today's briefing regarding supporting children and families in the child welfare system. Whether that's by bringing this back to your networks or pushing impactful legislation forward, you are a pivotal player in building sustainable infrastructures for children and families in the child welfare system nationwide.
Every day, over 391,000 children and youth are navigating foster care across America. Decisions beyond their control profoundly shape these young people's lives every single day. Our cohort has dedicated countless hours to researching, discussing, and collaborating with experts in the field to determine the most effective ways to support these children and youth. As former and current foster youth, our personal experiences have been infused into every facet of this process, leading us to craft policy recommendations to enhance outcomes and create brighter futures for children in care. Today, you will hear proposals influenced by our collective expertise, recommendations spanning from kinship placement to Medicaid access. These proposals are not mere suggestions, but reflections of a movement toward transformative change in the child welfare system. We have all done the necessary work to inform, inspire, and create a movement of trailblazers. That all would not be possible without the generations of individuals and communities before us who have advocated and fought for change in this space, for they have paved the roads we currently walk on. Like the stories before ours, we hope they will continue carrying Christians, Dylan's, Eric's, Julia's, Nadia's, Maria's, Leah's, and Shai's stories with you beyond today's briefing. We call on each of you to be a catalyst for change. By actively working to implement the policy recommendations presented today, you can ensure that the voices and experiences of foster youth are not only heard, but also serve as the driving force in creating a more equitable and supportive system for all children and families.
So let us choose to wonder, to know, and to act.
Let us choose to be the change we wish to see in the world, one step at a time.
Together, we have the power to reshape the child welfare system as we know it and create a future where children and youth can reach their untold potential.
Together, we can.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here today to not only speak of my own experience, but to also speak on behalf of those who may share similar experiences. Today, we are witnessing a pivotal shift in child welfare, moving away from the unnecessary use of residential treatment facilities, which research has consistently shown to be detrimental to children and youth in care, leading to higher risks of homelessness, incarceration, and substance use. In contrast, kinship care, where children are placed with relatives or familiar individuals, offers a nurturing alternative that fosters stability, connection, and better outcomes. When I entered foster care mere months before my 18th birthday, in my senior year of high school, it was supposed to be an exciting time in my life. Instead, I entered care with my two sisters, Victoria and Maya. As you can imagine, it is extremely hard to find a familial placement for two children and a teenager. Luckily, I had a supportive network and a placement that was pivotal to navigating my path forward. It was an extremely volatile period for my family, but it cultivates a need and a passion for advocacy. Every child and youth in care deserves a chance to prosper. By prioritizing kinship placements and investing in supportive programs, we can transform the foster care system into one that truly serves the best interests of all children and youth, especially those with complex and unique needs. Although my needs were not complex, I believe it is imperative to advocate on behalf of my two sisters. Children and youth with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities are disproportionately represented in the system, making up only 2 to 3% of the general population, but 9% of children in foster care. They face significantly worse outcomes, including longer stays in care and higher rates of placement disruptions. These youth, particularly Black youth and females, experience higher rates of placement in residential treatment facilities and suffer the consequences of their environment. When placed with relatives or close family friends, children with disabilities experience better educational, mental health, and permanency outcomes. Kinship families are also more likely to remain stable in consistent placements when faced with health or behavioral challenges. However, kinship caregivers require more support to manage the complex needs of this population. How can we address this? We can start by expanding treatment foster care, or TFC, to kinship caregivers. TFC programs provide specialized training and resources to caregivers so they can offer evidence-based and trauma-informed care for children and youth with serious medical, psychological, emotional, and social needs. While TFC is effective, not enough families are given support to offer this level of care, and it is primarily used for non-relative foster families. By expanding TFC for kinship caregivers, we can ensure that children and youth with complex needs remain in supportive family environments. To achieve this, I recommend 3 key policy initiatives. First, Congress should amend Title 4B, Subpart 2 of the Social Security Act to require states to outline their plans for expanding treatment foster care services with an emphasis on kinship care. Second, establish a National Technical Assistance Center for treatment foster care similar to the existing center under SAMHSA to support states in developing and implementing this care for kin. And finally, implement demonstration grants within Title 4B to develop treatment foster care models tailored to the unique needs of kinship caregivers, ensuring children and youth with developmental and intellectual disabilities can thrive with those who know and love them. We must enforce and enact policies that have a positive impact on children and youth who could thrive in environments they know and love. Thank you.
My name is Eric Alvarez. For older youth, the transition out of foster care can resemble a roller coaster that ends with a plunge into deep waters. It's filled with all kinds of twists and turns. Structured mentorship can help ease that ride and facilitate a smoother path. Mentors can be a beacon of hope, getting you towards a brighter future. My personal story is a testament to the transformative power of mentorship. In 2016, I re-entered the foster care system due to my mother's inability to provide stability and security. Thank you. Sorry. I was placed with my 21-year-old sister, who was already a single mother of 2. Despite being in a caring environment, I internalized the lack of guidance and responsibility and self-sufficiency. Acting out became my coping mechanism. My grades fell, I lost jobs, I became truant. I didn't graduate with my classmates. I landed on probation. My life was not heading in the direction I wanted it to. However, everything changed 4 years ago when I was introduced to Astute Coffee, a nonprofit and mentorship program that provides workforce development for young adults who've been impacted by the foster care system. Under the guidance of mentors like Maya Summer, Curtis Olson, and Ashley Carlson, I found the support and resources I needed to succeed. From flexible working hours to financial assistance and training, my mentors empowered me to achieve in ways I didn't think I could. From graduating high school pursuing higher education, and developing essential life skills. They became my support system, my advocates, my family. As I became more independent and self-sufficient, a relationship of mutual support, respect, and love deepened between my sister and I. Liz Alvarez is always and will be my rock. She is both my sister and my mother. I love you, Mom. Te amo. My experience with Astute Coffee highlights the transformative potential of structured mentorship. It goes beyond mere advice. It's about having someone in your corner, cheering you through the life of the labyrinth. However, despite the positive connections, foster youth often, their statistics reveal significant gaps in educational, financial, and employment outcomes. To address these challenges, we need to prioritize structured mentorship programs like Astute Coffee and innovative permanency options like the Soul Family Model. Congressional support is not only crucial, but a must. For expanding funding and implementing legislation measures such as the Foster Youth Mentoring Act and the Transition to Success Mentoring Act. Furthermore, reinforcing existing mentorship programs and connecting them with funding sources can ensure their sustainability and impact by bridging the gap between foster care and independence. We can provide equal opportunities for former foster youth to thrive. In the words of Tanya Crystal, the love and lessons shared through mentorship are anything but temporary. Mentors are the foundation upon which foster youth can build fulfilling lives and contribute meaningfully to society. It's time to invest in those futures and ensure that no youth in the foster care system exits without a supportive network guiding them towards success. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Over a third of children currently in the United States foster care system receive health care from a Medicaid agency managed by a private care management organization, or CMO. This is because federal law mandates Medicaid coverage for nearly all children in foster care. However, states have discretion in how this medical care is financed. Currently, 9 states use CMOs as private insurers for Medicaid managed health care. The issue lies in that these private insurers are brought in by the state to handle payment delivery to doctors and healthcare providers, though there have been significant and credible reports of contracted insurers instead rejecting payment for needed health services. Concerningly, this issue relates to there being a severe lack of transparency to the public on the nature and performance of these managed care programs. As part of states' Title IV-B plans, child welfare agencies are meant to collaborate with Medicaid agencies to ensure that care management organizations provide detailed and publicly available plans for ensuring appropriate access to quality health care. Title IV-B also provides federal funding to state child welfare agencies to implement and oversee this policy. Nonetheless, it is concerning that many youth in care receive broken or limited access to adequate health care and subsequent preventable negative health outcomes. I've had both family members and mentors from the military who have struggled in adapting and navigating this inadequate Medicaid system. These inadequacies and payment rejections have resulted in children under their care having to forego or wait for long periods of time for critical treatment of physical and mental health care, thus too often stunting both cognitive and physical growth milestones. Critical treatments are vast and can include services such as speech and physical therapy, or for my own family, the treatment of a cleft palate for my nephew. My personal experience are supported by a recent investigation by the Illinois Answers Project, which found that thousands of Medicaid payment claims for treatment given have been denied. This has resulted in many negative consequences, from basic treatment, such as immunizations and dental cleanings, Many foster youth are failing to receive adequate care as a result of these private insurers refusing to adhere to their duties of serving the nation's most vulnerable children. There is an urgent need for transparency to improve access to and the quality of health care for foster youth. Congress has an opportunity to address this need through targeted policy reform with the ongoing reauthorization of Title IV-B of the Social Security Act. A key child welfare law that would require states to oversee and coordinate the physical and mental health care for children in out-of-home care. My name is Christian Bell, and my recommendation is that Congress implement new oversight measures for Medicaid-managed health care. These recommendations include detailed quarterly reports, increased accountability of Medicaid funds dispersed, and the improved training of personnel and the medical needs of children currently in foster care. I urge Congress to curtail care management organizations taking advantage of a broken healthcare system and taking advantage of children part of the foster care system. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Hello everybody, my name is Dylan Evans, and I'm elated to be here with you today. 2 years after the passing of the Family First Prevention Services Act, an act that was deemed by many to be a monumental and critical act for the preservation of families and the prevention of unnecessary foster care. One child in rural North Carolina fell through the cracks of the system and was forgotten. I am that child. My journey in foster care started amidst a global pandemic, and my pain was exacerbated by a lack of care and follow-through in an already bogged down, overworked, and flawed system. I was alone at home in isolation due to the pandemic. I lived with my parents, who chose drugs and alcohol over my well-being. It was painful, and I suffered. After a physical altercation with my dad, the Department of Social Services arrived, and this was the start of what would become one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life. Since I was only a teenager, I felt I could not speak up for myself regarding what was best for me. I was sent to live in kinship care with my aunt at the suggestion of my social worker. Even at my aunt's house, it remained an endless uphill battle for services that we should have been entitled to by federal legislation. Family First, officially the Family First Prevention Services Act. The lack of peer support, therapeutic services, and financial subsidies began to change family dynamics in my aunt's home. I felt the weight of how much my presence affected her daily life and ability to support me. After my failed suicide attempt and a continued lack of access to mental health services, my aunt could no longer care for me. On February 21st, 2021, my aunt dropped me off at the Department of Social Services in Sampson County, North Carolina. On that day, I became one of nearly 400,000 children in the United States foster care system. I was whisked away to a group home, hours away from where my family was, where I would eventually age out of care. The separation from any form of family, continued isolation, alarms on the doors and windows, and locks on the pantry still haunt me. These conditions unnecessarily punish children in group homes for circumstances completely beyond their own control. The point stands clear today. Children require families, and families require support. Family First's goal to prevent kids like me from entering foster care failed. It failed in supporting my parents with their substance abuse disorder to the point I was no longer safe in their home. It failed in providing any solid resources or support for my aunt as a kin caregiver. It failed in providing me access to timely and necessary mental health services. Today, I urge Congress to use Title IV-B funds to support kinship caregivers, specifically in accessible, economic, concrete, and peer-to-peer supports. Congress should urge all states to adopt and implement licensing standards for kinship caregivers presented by the final ruling of separate licensing or approval standards for relative or kinship foster families. Finally, to strengthen kinship and permanency outcomes, Congress should increase funding in regional partnership programs to allow for states to support families with substance abuse disorders who have been in contact with the child welfare system. Despite what I have experienced and what I have survived, I still believe that with proper implementation, Congress has a unique opportunity to keep my story from becoming the storyline for others in the future by amplifying prevention services to successfully keep children out of the child welfare system. Thank you.
My name is Nadia Goforth, and I am one of the 25,000 youth who age out of foster care in any given year. Aging out means that a youth in care has reached the age of 18 without achieving any forms of legal permanency. I was adopted at 2 years old, but one day when I was 13, I came home from school and was told to pack a bag. My parents dropped me off at a shelter within an hour. Suddenly, my journey in foster care had begun. Despite this, I still consider myself to be one of the lucky ones. During my time in care, I had educators, camp counselors, and mentors who became the foundation for my survival. However, when I graduated high school and aged out of care shortly after, that foundation quickly disappeared. Within a year of aging out, I was homeless. I lived out of my car at 19 years old. I slept at rest stops, showered in bathrooms, and constantly battled with my mental health. I remember reaching out to everyone I knew, pleading for help, but often receiving no response. I continued to struggle with homelessness, domestic violence, and poverty for years. Even now, almost 10 years later, I fear the potential of re-entering this cycle. It wasn't until I moved out of state and began working with foster youth that I learned about extended foster care, CCAI services, and their potential for profound impacts. The CCAI program was created in 1999 through the Foster Care Independence Act to provide annual funding to states for independent living services for youth ages 14 and over who had experienced the foster care system. For adolescent youth, CCAI programs have become a critical element of establishing permanency through mentorship and relationship-based supports. Though CCAI was established 25 years ago, data from 2021 tells us that, shockingly, these funds are accessed by less than 25% of eligible youth. Research shows that just like me, a majority of these youth are unaware of the services available to them. I find myself reflecting on that transitional time in my life a lot. I wonder what my life would have been in better circumstances. I wonder if educational support or consistent mentorship would have helped me graduate college sooner, saved me from years of domestic violence, or supported me in finding safe and stable housing. I wonder the impact that a sense of community could have made for me in a time where I felt deeply alone. With less than half of young adults 14 to 21 years old exiting foster care into forms of legal permanency, we must hold states accountable for providing youth with regular notification of available CCAI services starting at the age of 14 and work to establish best practices for that process moving forward. As we work to ensure equitable access and utilization of CCAI, we must also ensure that these services are responsive and impactful. We must commit to breaking the silence and work to uplift and incorporate the voices of systems-impacted youth in all aspects of child welfare. Research has shown for decades that one positive, consistent adult relationship has the power to alter the entire course of a child's life. It has been proven time and time again. Meaningful relationships positively impact educational attainment, reduce risks of homelessness, and contribute to long-term stability. Every youth aging out of care deserves equal access to services and an equitable opportunity for success. It is time to start looking at the data and listening to the voices of impacted individuals who have been advocating for GP expansion and transitional supports for years. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. I want to start off by inviting each of you, both familiar and new faces, to take a moment to go within and reflect on the first person in your life who you consider to be your best friend, confidant, and role model. Someone throughout childhood who may have helped shape your identities, navigate life challenges, and even scheme ways to get extra TV time to play just one more round of Guitar Hero. By now, you're most likely thinking of a sibling, potentially a close cousin that isn't really a cousin but got the label anyway, or maybe a close friend that you saw as a sister or brother. No matter the role, siblings and sibling figures are among the most important and enduring bonds we form in our lives. My name is Maria Rosa Kelly, formerly Maria Rosa Chavez, and I am one out of 5 siblings, believe it or not, separated by state border lines and in some cases by foster care systems. Generational displacement has stripped us of our language, cultures, and identities, erasing who we are, our origins, and even our names. The consequences of this displacement are not just abstract concepts. They manifest into what has been a 9-month legal battle to get contact with my younger brother who resides in Minnesota's foster care system. And just 2 days ago, I received news that my brother is undergoing a backdoor non-kinship adoption. And for anyone who isn't familiar with that term, that means that he will be adopted in 30 days, and I face the very real possibility of never being able to speak to or see him again. Despite how much raw anguish this brings me, what hurts the most is that he, a young brown boy, may also be removed from his roots, forever longing for people and places to call home, just as I did. However, I want to stress that this is not an isolated experience. I am but one of the 75% of foster youth separated from their siblings, with a notable increased likelihood for Black and Hispanic Latin children. Over the span of 5 years, 4 foster youth interns, including my colleagues Leah and Eric, who you heard from earlier today, have also advocated on the importance of sibling preservation and shared their stories that are alarmingly similar and intersectional to mine. We each emphasize how these separations are particularly devastating when siblings are moved across state lines, and we all found that the current policies, language, and infrastructure fail to support interstate sibling connections. Fortunately, there is ripe opportunity to build upon what does currently exist and create possibilities that can actualize interstate siblingship reform. To help support sibling connections, I urge Congress to establish a national working group to study the state of interstate sibling connections across the nation and require the working group consists of key stakeholders with personal and professional expertise navigating interstate sibling connections. A report on its findings, tasks, recommendations, and implementation plan should be developed alongside a toolkit for states to incorporate interstate siblingship provisions in their sibling Bill of Rights. Congress should also reintroduce and strengthen the Protecting Sibling Relationships in Foster Care Acts with amendments that broaden the scope of sibling groups. And lastly, develop a training for caseworkers, lawyers, and judges on how to best represent a client's interests in interstate sibling cases. Together, we can ensure that all youth get the chance to preserve their first best friend, confidant, and role model, no matter the distance. Thank you.
Foundation states that over a third of foster children and youth experience more than 2 placements each year, meaning their living arrangements change at least 3 times a year. Some studies show that the more youth moves placements, the more likely they are to experience distress, uncertainty, and an overall decline in self-confidence. Yet, this is unsurprising to policy experts and my colleagues here today. When I was removed from my biological home, I was placed into kinship care with my aunt, who was a single mother and had 2 other children to care for. At 12, I realized how much additional stress my sister and I would bring and did not want her to experience that. At the time, I developed extremely close relationships with my next-door neighbors and their children and knew that they were responsible and economically stable enough to care for 2 more kids. Luckily for me, they completed the necessary training to become foster parents, and soon after, my sister and I were placed with them, growing into a much larger family. My name is Cheyenne, or Shy Robinson, and while my story is filled with luck and happenstance, over the next 6 years, many efforts were made to either reunify with my biological family or be adopted. I wanted neither of those options. Living and aging out of the system would give me a stable educational experience, continuing not only my excellent academic reputation, but a relationship with my biological family and the friendships I had fostered along the way. Aging out also meant access to financial aid to continue my education and to support my young adulthood. Youth choosing their homes is a step in a direction of minimizing the number of placements they experience. State legislators in Kansas recently signed a bill into law that allows older youth to choose their soul family. A soul family offers support, opportunity, unity, and legal relationships to youth aged 16 and older. The soul family framework is youth-centric, exemplifying the capacity for young people to be engaged, not only in their placements, but also with whom they want to establish loving legal relationships. This is why it is pertinent that Congress acknowledge soul family as a legitimate permanency option, like guardianship, and support soul families through the Promoting Safe and Stable Families Fund in Title 4B. This action would, 1, update the statutory language in Title 4B to emphasize youth choosing permanency and kinship, and 2, allow youth to establish legal relationships with unrelated adults who can become decision makers in their lives. In a way, my experience reflects that of a soul family, but without the legal title. Had I been able to participate in a soul family, I would have felt more secure and respected as someone in foster care. Younger generations are always told that we should be bold and brave because we are the change that we want to see in the world. Congress and federal agencies should allow us to do just that. Bring our innovative, collaborative ideas to the surface to continue to reflect the importance of young people driving their lives. Thank you.
811 days. 811 is the number of days I spent in congregate care. Congregate care in my story can be defined as a group home, youth shelter, or residential facility, commonly referred to as an institutionalized setting. 811 days I spent without a real mattress, a real home, or a loving family. My name is Julia Stumler, and I want to revolutionize the relationship between congregate care and foster youth. I come to you today with my story, and specifically my experience within congregate care, because those years were truly the worst years of my entire life. I am now in my 6th year of foster care, wherein when I first entered, I transitioned between 13 placements within my first 2.5 years, with 11 of those placements being congregate facilities. In these facilities, I was scared, consistently silenced, and as an older foster youth in these facilities, I wanted independence. This could not be granted due to the institutionalized, regulated nature of residential facilities. I wanted normalcy, the ability to continue playing French horn in my school band, play tennis on the team, learn to drive, go to prom, and hang out with friends. Things that teenagers in a normal family can do. The Family First Services Prevention Act in 2018 aimed to reduce the number of children in congregate care by redirecting funding into kinship placements and reducing the funding allocated to congregate facilities. It succeeded in this mission, though for youth without family-centered options, it failed. What happens when no foster home, no kinship placement, and no family can be found for a child? This is an unfortunate reality to recognize, but for youth like me, this meant bouncing between placements for years, switching high schools over 5 times, losing most of my connections to friends, and all of my connection to family. For these reasons, I recommend that Congress promote and support a wider range of permanency options for youth, including the access to independent living services as early as the age of 16. I did not receive these life-changing services until turning 18, and they made all the difference in supporting my desire for independence and financial literacy. I was finally able to access services that met me where I was at and supported my vision for something bigger. Further, I recommend that Congress improves Title IV-E funding as it extends it, so in-home placements can receive proper funding and training to better equip themselves for taking in youth that experience congregate care facilities. Lastly, I recommend that Congress require all congregate facilities to report their quarterly efforts to maintain normalcy. By implementing these recommendations, we can support foster youth in leading independent, happier, and healthier lives. Thank you.
As we begin to conclude this briefing, we would first like to extend our immense gratitude. We want to thank CCAI for building a platform for lived experience experts to share their stories and begin to take a seat at decision-making tables. We want to thank everyone in attendance for showing up today as an advocate and an ally for youth impacted by foster care. And we would like to thank each of our fellow interns for sharing their stories. Without their vulnerability, bravery, and engagement, critical conversations about lived experience in child welfare wouldn't be possible. On any given day, 391,000 children and youth are in foster care across America. 391,000 children with stories like ours, whose futures will be forever impacted by the child welfare system and whose voices are far too often silenced. Each of us stood before you and gave you just a small glimpse of our experiences in the foster care system. I want to emphasize that the stories and challenges you've heard today are just the tip of the iceberg. Each of us has been permanently and deeply changed by our experiences with foster care. The narratives we have shared simply highlight the resilience and fortitude of individuals navigating this system firsthand. We must prioritize giving voices to these experiences and allow them to shape future policies and practices that prioritize stability, support, and empowerment. The child welfare system is complex, and the road to widespread change can be daunting. But hope is a group project. Together, we must nurture collective hope and affirm that a better future is not just desirable, but achievable. As you leave today and contemplate your next steps, we hope you remember our faces, our stories, and our voices. Let us inspire in you a continued commitment to reforming the child welfare system, ensuring that you engage and collaborate with those who have lived experience. Together, we can build a system that truly supports and empowers every child in foster care.
I think we can collectively agree that none of us expected to be standing against our congressmen and women on a hot Wednesday in Washington, D.C. Maybe this is because our voices were often silenced during foster care, or we never knew how powerful our experiences then would become now. Now, our stories have become empowering moments of our own lives. Our resilience and dreams to forge a better future for ourselves is just as strong as the passion to change it for the individuals still experiencing it. When I was in care, like many others, I felt alone. If I would have known the community that would someday be built through advocates, lived experts, social workers, and individuals changing lives through legislation, I would have never believed it. The hope that comes from these conversations is truly life-changing, and not only for all of you, but for us too. Through our stories and your collaboration, lives can change. We are honored to stand before all of you today in hopes that our experiences can provide guidance and where we should look next in foster care. The things all of us experienced were challenging, and being here today is not only through our resilience, but through our passions to help shape that future. I leave you once again with the quote: "What do you choose to read? What do you choose to think about? And what do you choose to know?" Today, we hope you leave and read the policy recommendations that we shared. All of us worked diligently to include research, recommendations, and data that could radically improve the experiences we spoke about. Reading the statistics of the broader community that align with our own testimonies today is powerful knowledge. We hope you choose to remember our experiences as you craft your proactive legislation and advocate alongside of us. Know that the legislation you make truly changes the lives of children. No pressure though. Prioritizing the incorporation of lived experience into legislation is absolutely vital to ensure and understand the full scope and impact the legislation may have. Finally, we hope you know how thankful we are to be in front of you today. Your knowledge and expertise, coupled with the willingness to listen and learn, is incredible. If you take just one thing from today, remember that the testimonies you heard are not just sad stories. They are true and widespread, faced by thousands of youth still experiencing the system today. Your actions can inspire better futures, and please hear our stories and act on the resilience of all of our futures. Thank you.
Amazing. Good afternoon, everyone. Is my mic on? I thought I sounded a little quiet. Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Richmond, and I had the pleasure of serving as the Policy Report Director for this year's incredible cohort of foster youth interns. But 9 years ago, I was sitting in their seats. And so I can say with confidence that what they have done here today, what they have done over the past few months is not easy. That they have come into our nation's capital and taken their lived experience, taken their most painful moments, and have shared them with you all for a very big purpose. So do not let that go unwasted. And with that, I would welcome you all to give me one more round of applause for these amazing interns. Now, they shared so many amazing ideas and recommendations with us all, and we know you probably have so many burning questions for them. So we are going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. We have Toria in the back who has some microphones, so if you would just go ahead and raise your hands high in the sky, we will get you a mic.
Hi, Russ Sullivan here. Shia, I want to explore your idea about what the Kansas legislature did. Kids, students age 16 or old, have more power to choose their sole home. Is that how you described it? Okay. What I want to ask you is really what is the right age? Because I heard a lot of you talk about you sort of sensing something like, Nadia, when you were 13, you really knew something was wrong. Dylan, you were 12. You had different ages. Julia, you may have been closer to 16. But at what age does a student really have the ability to sort of make that decision, and who should help you do it?
Well, I can let my other colleagues speak, but I'll speak to what I think is best. I think that children should be involved, you should be involved throughout the entire process, and most states do a good job of engaging them. I've heard some states, it's, you can be 14 and you can try to request for guardianship and the like. Of course, I was 12 and I was super engaged in what I thought was best for me. I loved school. I did not want to be uprooted from my community, and I knew if I reunified with my mom, that is what would happen. And so it really just depends on the level of maturity that the youth is. And if they're being realistic about where they want to be with their placements, and trying to respect them in their autonomy throughout the entire process. But if anyone else disagrees, you're more than welcome to speak to see what age you think is best.
Thank you, Shai. Thank you, Russ, for that.
Sorry, I got something to add to that. I really think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think there's a specific age because, of course, people mature at different rates. Me, I was like mature by like 10, had to grow up pretty quickly. So I feel like it definitely should be a case-by-case scenario.
I also think that there's a little bit of a danger, not to disagree, with just making it a case-by-case basis, just because I think that children could fall through the cracks a little bit easier. And so just reinforcing that every child should have an incorporation of their voice into their case. And so whether that means 9 years old, 12 years old, 17 years old, every child should at least have an input into where they're going and what they think.
Thank you all, and thank you, Russ, for that great question. Other questions?
Hi, thank you all for allowing me to listen to each and every one of you's presentation. It was very good. A lot of you mentioned increasing Title IV-B. I'm not super familiar with that, but I know we have a lot of interns here and also a lot of people with influence and power. Given the process of that legislation being brought into it, and I know with the research that you guys have probably done, you've seen how bills can kind of get stuck on the floor. So my question is based on what you know about Title IV-B, whether it's the health aspect, whether it's the mentorship aspect, how much funding do you believe federal partners and also nonprofits and other agencies should be advocating to be given to increase Title IV-B? And the second part to that question is how, if you were in charge of it, how would you allocate those funds to be presented to each children, because we have such a massive wave? Yeah.
There were several of you who had expanded resources for 4B, so who would like to address this question? Leah?
Yeah, so I put in one of my recommendations to amend Title IV-B, Subpart 2. And so essentially it is, to my understanding, a pot of money, essentially, and this is funded, like child welfare initiatives are funded out of Title IV-B. And so with my specific recommendation, I am hoping to see that states are going to use this money to outline their plans and their state plans, essentially to expand treatment foster care. And so right now it's not very, I would say, not very utilized on a national scale, and so I would really love to see the opportunity for it to get more traction, especially allowing children and youth to stay in their homes. And so right now, when you have kinship care or kinship placements for my specific situation, you're not given a lot of money to essentially care for these children and youth. And luckily, I had a job when I was in care, but for someone who's taking on the role of parent to 3 more children, you essentially need a lot more resources than you're given. And so for me, it was more so kind of what we already have in that pot of money and essentially just expanding that.
Thank you, Leah. Dylan, anything to add?
Yes, I don't know the exact figure that Title IV-B is up to now, but it has not been adjusted for inflation since 2017. So people who are going for reauthorization, let's fix it so that it's adjusted for inflation for 2025. But that's what I would add. Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan. Shai?
So the focus of Title IV-B is on prevention services and supporting families. Adoption is included, but one of my biggest qualms is that guardianship is not really, and other forms of kinship aren't really included there, and so that's actually one of the main changes that I would like to see. I think another problem is that there's a lot of programmatic elements to Title IV-B and just child welfare in general, but when you have a high turnover rate when it comes to social workers, I think that the lack of knowledge is not consistent, and so maybe, the funds are being used because people don't know that the funds exist in the first place. And so maybe looking at how do you retain social workers and make them, their lives a little bit easier and share the information more consistently, I think is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eunice, for the question. Other questions?
I offer my congratulations to all of you as well. Very impressive presentations, and as Carrie said, it is not easy to speak to a distinguished room like this and also be vulnerable at the same time, so congratulations. My question is a more general one. What's your conclusion on Washington and Congress now and how our system works after having had this insider look? What will you go back and tell people about our nation's capital and the U.S. Congress?
Yeah, I'll go. There are some very passionate people here. Very, very passionate. And it's amazing to see electrifying energy like this really go into pushing legislation. With that being said, when they call it an act of Congress, they mean it because it takes a very long time for things to happen. But it's wonderful to see that people really do care about what is going on in this country and they want to change it. We have 2 chambers of Congress and it takes a long time to get laws passed, but it's amazing to see it happen.
Question?
I think that you see the real drive and motivation of people who work here in Washington. One thing I have noticed is that there is definitely a need and push from states and local districts to urge Congress to request more funding for Title IV-B and Medicaid for Title IV-B recipients. Currently, the Medicaid budget for all 391,000 children in care is $650 million. And like my colleague Dylan said, it has not been updated in almost 5-6 years. So, thank you.
Julia, go ahead.
I would say my biggest takeaway from working for the U.S. Congress and also on the Senate side is just the bipartisan support is beautiful to see within this sector. I think so many times, so many issues are politicized within our country, and child welfare is one area that I'm really proud to work in, just because there's support from both sides, both chambers. And so I think it is easier to pull on the heartstrings and work together for children. And so coming here to the nation's capital hasn't changed my view of that at all. It's just a very inspiring spot to work.
Shai, did you also hear? Are you sure? Okay, Nadia or Maria, anything to add?
I was gonna kind of say the same thing Julia mentioned. I think there's a lot of people that care a lot about child welfare issues, and child welfare is an issue that affects everyone. So the deep collaboration and relationship building that it takes to really make an impact has been great to see, and there are a lot of people here that are committed to that.
We have one in the very, very back. We can get a mic back there.
Good afternoon. My name is Aubrey Edwards-Luz. I'm at the University of Baltimore, and you all are just so impressive. Your thoughts were just so thorough. Thank you so much for sharing with us all of your hard work. I'm just curious as to what's next for some of you. I'm seeing and hearing very gubernatorial, Congress-like vibes from some of you, so please let us know what's next.
Let's go ahead and start with Leah, and let's have everyone briefly answer this question.
Thank you so much for the kind words as well. So I am looking for a job, so plugging myself. I'm hoping to stay in DC and kind of continue the work that I have built on this summer, and so I have been working with Senator Chuck Grassley's office and have made amazing connections and have had an amazing supervisor who has been very supportive of all the things, connecting me to the people. And so I'm really excited to essentially kind of continue my journey and hopefully, stay in DC. But as of right now, probably go back to Arizona, but we'll see.
For me, it'll be going back to Omaha and finishing my bachelor's last year at the University of Nebraska Omaha, first generation. I'm going to be the first one to ever graduate college in my family. But the big plan is to continue with ROTC, Air Force ROTC down at UNO and become an Air Force officer. Go Dep 470, goal back.
I, like my colleague Leah, am also looking for a job, so if you know anyone hiring in DC. But my experience here has shown me that my real passion is in the public healthcare systems that need massive overhaul in our country, that affect our nation's foster youth every year.
Well, hi, I'm Dylan again. I go to the University of North Carolina National. I'm a rising junior, so I've got 2 more years. And I would love to come back to the Hill, but I'll leave it with this. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans for a better life in the future." So I'm going to give it to God and see what happens.
I think I'm in an interesting space right now. I just graduated with my master's and I'm finishing up research for that, and really was passionate about this opportunity, so I left my previous roles in nonprofit direct service. But I really enjoy things like this where you bring voice and just passion to issues like this, so hoping to continue in this space.
So I fourth the job statement, also looking for a job. But I would say what's next for me is completing my master's degree. And also, I think my time here in DC, I felt very called to find communities where I can reimagine and decolonize the current systems and infrastructures we have. When I was thinking about the last question, I always say this quote systems work in which the way they are designed. And so I think I'm really feeling called to just really do more liberatory work, communal work, and see how that can feel me. So.
I'm extremely sad to leave Representative Davis's office, but I'm staying a little bit longer. I'm currently in the process of applying to be a Rhodes Scholar, and if you are unfamiliar, it's a graduate program. They pay for you to go to the University of Oxford, and so I'm really hoping that I can get that. But if not, then I'm hoping to do some human rights advocacy, or maybe even doing some work within research think tanks and trying to produce some very substantive literature that can, help inform people.
I'll be heading home to the South Indiana to finish my own degree, and then thereafter graduation, I would like to continue work in child welfare policy and legislation, no ground floor social work for me, and then off of child welfare, I just like children and family services and education in that realm, and so hopefully continuing in the policy sector.
Thank you all. Do we have questions from Zoom?
Yes, we have one question from those who are tuning in live via Zoom. And it says, last week, the Senate Finance Committee hosted a hearing on the need for congregate care reform. For those that touched on that today as well, do you have any additional thoughts to share on how the federal government can do better for our youth?
Let's start with Julia and then Dylan.
Oh, it was such a blessing to be here while that Senate Finance Committee happened. I wrote my entire policy report basically about that finding, and that it just happened while I was here. It was a wonderful thing to experience. What was the question part of that? I'm sorry.
Just do you have any additional thoughts based off of the testimonies provided there?
I'm very proud of the federal government to looking into something like that about how private organizations are handling children and children's health and children's lives. I think that that's a kind of taboo topic to touch into. First, a lot of people I feel are not aware of what congregate care is, that we have almost 60,000 children in group homes. It's like, where's your nearest group home? Nobody knows. But like for youth like me who experienced this, I mean, I had no clue like what group home life was before I went into care. And so seeing that the federal government took an initiative to look into this and look into the abusive instances within these care facilities was very powerful, very emotional, I think, for quite a few of us who did experience group home care, but it also just really challenged the system that's currently in place and holding those facilities accountable.
That was a powerful committee hearing, if there ever was one. Seeing Senator Wyden and Senator Crapo talk about these issues realistically and really understanding where the sector is and meeting children where they're at, it was beautiful. And even talking to the survivors of residential treatment facilities, it was cathartic, truly, being able to speak with them and have their voices heard. I am so proud that I got to be there for that moment. And something that I think we need to move forward to is stop setting children in places where we forget about them. Because social work and unfortunately in healthcare, we have this sort of set it and forget it rule where if you think that they are safe, if you think that they are happy, then you can put them and slide them under the rug and forget about them. But that's not how children work. That's not how humans work. You have to continue to care for them. And the obvious and evident and horrific instances of maltreatment are not exceptions. They are the rule. And it seems ridiculous that that is what people are going through. And it was a monumental moment, truly.
We have a question here and in the back, so maybe we want to start here and then bring it up here. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Jamin, and I'm actually staff over on the House side for a resource office to help educate our communities about careers in Congress. So those of you guys that are looking to stay in, I want to talk to you guys and help you guys hopefully get your start here on the Hill. First of all, I wanted to thank Dylan for introducing me to your organization. Really amazing organization. And as a new ally, my question to you guys is, what do you guys want us to walk away from? What's the one thing you want me to walk away from here knowing on how to be a better ally to you, to your programs, and to this organization?
So I think it's a really difficult question because I feel like we all talked about such monumental topics, but I feel like the most important thing is educate yourself. Be in a space where you are willing to listen, where you are willing to learn, and essentially there's so many things that you could kind of take away from this briefing, but I feel like the most important is centering the children and youth who have either been in care or are currently in care. I feel like oftentimes we get all of these ideas and we're excited and we're just like, yeah, we're gonna, revolutionize the foster care system. But I feel like oftentimes we're left out of the conversation. And I think it's important for us to kind of center that and say, what are youth needing? What are they missing out of this experience? Because essentially there will always, I feel like, be foster care, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a negative experience for everyone. And so I think that's extremely important to kind of walk away from this setting from.
I would say when you're tackling these type of scenarios and these situations, I would say don't come towards it with pity, but compassion. There's been numerous times where I've seen people take it as a pity approach, and that just kind of, in my opinion, causes a lot of disrespect and not compassion towards when you're having conversations with people that are living through these experiences. You gotta have compassion, but also patience. Things are gonna take time. People do take time to open up. It's not gonna be, a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, so on and so forth. It takes sometimes years for people to open up. But to me, it's just compassion but also patience.
I think going into it with an open mind and leaving all the stereotypes and stigmas that you may have of the foster care system or children who have been in care at the door. Everyone to my left and my right, I think, shows the true embodiment of the foster care system and the true deep resilience that children who have been in the system have, and take that, utilize it, take their opinions, take their lived experience, and have them be an instrument of change alongside you, include them in the conversation.
We've spoken a bit, David, but I would just like to reiterate the quote that was in our starting close. What will you choose to read? What will you choose to think? What will you choose to know? If you choose to read into the things that create the system, if you choose to understand what the system is, and if you choose to know that there is a better system that can be created, then that creates a better world for all of us.
I'll be quick. I'll just echo kind of what everyone is saying. And I think systems change is not about showing up once. It's about showing up over and over again, repeatedly, and like constantly seeking that engagement and that knowledge of the space. And I think, as they've mentioned, a lot of the time we're painted as just victims of the child welfare system, but I think everyone sitting up here is intelligent and really powerful, and people that are happy and able to work alongside you to help you understand and to create systemic change and make progress on issues that are still impacting a lot of people.
Yeah, so I've said a lot of quotes today, but this is the last one. Brene Brown has this quote, she always says, "Dare to be curious." And I think that that's the first thing that came to my mind when you asked this question on allyship. And really daring to be curious about the specific groups of people that are disproportionately and most affected in foster care and other systems. So really honoring BIPOC folks, those with disabilities, migrants, those affected, dual system youth, which is also those affected by other systems such as the juvenile justice system. So really also honoring those people and to bring them into these conversations, and again, just being curious to see what else is there.
I would say there are two things. One substantive thing you can do is go back and read the policy report that we, spend a lot of time on and really try to think about how to integrate what we're saying into, federal law. The second thing that I would say is really contextualize the individuality of foster youth and realize that people can be more than their trauma, and that when we have systems in place that really want to help and fulfill people's self-actualization, that's incredibly important to really want to advocate for.
I would echo Maria's comment about being curious before going into care. I was a teenager, so I didn't have much place thinking about what happens to children who don't have families. But being curious about those types of things, how do foster children get new clothes? When a foster child switches to a new county, how do they maintain their education? Things that I think I have a lot of conversations with people about child welfare, and people are like, what's a group home? And those questions are completely normal, but I wish they weren't. I wish more people understood the gravity of what these things are, also considering that these are children and their voices are developing over time and developmental milestones and things like that. And then also, although I want to go into child welfare policy, being aware is number one, but ground floor work is also just so vital of volunteering at certain things, or just understanding in your own community where foster care and what's the foster issues within your home state, your home county, those things. And so I also think just ground level education is so vital to bring to the policy sphere.
Thank you all. And we had a question in the front row.
I think this will be our last question as well.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Sandra, and I wanted to start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing us to listen to your stories. And my question was pretty much about and I'm sorry, cracking voice. My question was basically about while I was sitting here and listening to each and everyone's story. Like the term like aging out, like some of y'all like experience like aging on the system at like 18. I wanted to know from you all like what's the consensus of it in terms of like should we, the Congress or like the Capitol, like the United States, should we raise that age to an appropriate age where we allow kids to have like better timing to find like a placement or anything of that sort?
Nadia, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. I think raising the age is definitely important. And I think a lot of states have like taken steps to do that to make extended foster care open till age 21 or 23. But I think more so with aging out, it's about that continuum of care, because a lot of the time when you turn 18, and even if you go into extended foster care for a period of time, your social worker changes, your services change, and your whole life is kind of still flipped upside down. And so it's how can we serve these youth in a way that's consistent and still providing a foundation for them as they work to solve these issues.
Thank you all for, oh sorry, go ahead. Did you want to add?
I was just going to add one tidbit of just kind of like, I think it's a and conversation, not necessarily a but. And I think along with like extending the age, it's like including more of those preventionary approaches and models such as soul family, so that youth don't necessarily have to rely on those extra years, but really start early with those interventionary services, which are very cost effective as well. So yeah, I just want to highlight that.
Great point. Any other points to highlight?
I have one thing to add. I am in extended foster care right now. I technically like aged out at 18, but I'm 20 now, and Indiana offers a program, independent living services, until you are 21, which I'll still be in college, so it'll be kind of tough my senior year to get everything through. But I would say it has been the most impactful and meaningful program I experienced throughout my entire child welfare experience. It's like it's supportive financially. It's also supportive like with just independent lifestyles and culturing that independence within all foster youth. And I started at 18, and I really think that those independent services should be extended to earlier for youth, specifically, aging out in congregate facilities. But it's a very successful program.
Thank you, Julia.
I was just going to echo the same thing. I think as we move forward in the child welfare system, we cannot allow 21 to become the new 18, because it develops fear for those who are growing. Unfortunately, the system has to raise children, and it has to raise young adults into people who are civically engaged, who go into professions, who become professionals, who become change makers. But this fear is underlying, and so I think that and there was a hearing today about strengthening child welfare systems, and one of the witnesses talked about how we could really incorporate skills-based approaches into how we base the services. A lot of states have criteria, eligibility requirements that you need to meet in order to be in those programs, which is a start to helping those skills build. So yeah, that's what I would add.
Thank you, Dylan. And thank you all for your questions. Thank you for being here. Kate is going to come close us out. But one question that I would encourage you to ask the foster youth interns is how you can follow up with them. You've heard several of them are looking for jobs, some of them may be looking for internships, and all of them have incredible ideas. So don't be afraid to come on up at the end of today's briefing and ask them how you can follow up. Thank you all.
All right, well, thank you all again for joining us this afternoon. We'll go ahead and close out our briefing. But thank you for being here to hear from our amazing advocates at the 22nd class of CCAI's Foster Youth Internship Program. We hope that you are inspired by the ideas and solutions for change. We have sincere gratitude for the leadership of our board of directors and support from many faithful partners who help make this work possible. We give special thanks to the American Council of Life Insurers, Apollo Global Management, Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, Constellation Energy, Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, Monolith, Retail Orphan Initiative, and Sarah and Joel Fagan. I also want to give a special shout out to amazing staff at CCAI, Sarah, who was doing photos today, Victoria, our policy director, and Lisette, amazing summer interns, Abigail, Avia, Ellie, and Tara. Thank you for being an integral member of our small but mighty team. This program truly would not happen without you. And lastly, to the class of 2024, thank you all for the hard work, dedication, and passion you have brought to DC this summer. You are champions for foster youth all across the country. And as an ode to the title that you have selected, Roots of Support, your report and briefing today exemplify how you are planting seeds through your ideas for change, so that one day these ideas take root and ultimately grow into ways the federal government can improve how our country cares for vulnerable children and families. Thank you again, everyone. If you have time, you're welcome to stick around and introduce yourself to the advocates. Continue that conversation. And with that, we will go ahead and close our congressional briefing. So thank you again.